Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. It's the second round of the Caribbean Touring Car Championship, and we are here at none other than the Turagua, Autódromo Turagua. And I'd like to say thanks for joining us on YouTube and Sportmax app. My name is Cale Vaden Roper, and we're about to watch this series that takes us around the Caribbean to witness some of the fiercest bumper-to-bumper racing action between top talents around the region. Drivers will push themselves to the limit, battling side by side to come out on top in two action-packed 20-minute races, the second of which will be a reverse grid of the top 10 finishers from the first race. We have about 12 minutes left in our free practice session here, where so far Raven Plummer is topping the timing sheets and still out there trying to extend that gap to Roger Keller, who has been leading the pack for the last couple of minutes, but he definitely has some competition on his hands. Jaden Harrison not yet dipping into the 106s, but it's early days, and we're for sure going to see the drivers become a lot more competitive as the track rubbers in and temps get lower. So I will rejoin you as we near the end of the free practice session and gear up for a fiery quali session. Good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. If you're just joining us, thanks for joining for the second round of the Caribbean Touring Car Championship. And we are here at the Autódromo Internacional de Turagua. And my name is Kelvin Roper, joined by Chad Dillon, your host at the most.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Boy, I'm surprised you take on the mouthful. I'm not going that far this evening. It's going to be Turagua all evening, and that's where we're going to leave it because you missed the second half of the name in that introduction, and I wasn't even going to try to help you out.
I made one attempt, but I think we're gonna be sticking with Turagua for the rest of the evening for real, Chad.
Yeah, no, I've been looking at the timing sheets here, and around that track this short, I know the gap seems small, but that is the world of difference when you're talking about laps that, finding even 2 tenths looks skeptical. So for the drivers at the top of the timing sheets, you can look for them to firmly stake their claim on this kind of track. Passing is also not very easy looking at the layout, and yeah, the only question mark is gonna be lap one, turn one.
Yeah, we'll be looking. Well, I won't say looking forward, but we'll definitely be keeping a keen eye, especially on the start of this race. The race format is going to be, well, the 1 hour and 30 minutes of practice has already gone. We're about to go into the 15-minute qualifying session before we head into the first of two 20-minute races, the second of which will be a reverse grid. And I think, I knew we were talking about it earlier, Chad, that a wise man, as you put it, would qualify towards the back of the grid, anticipating, a bit of a, well, the audience seemed to like the word kerfuffle from last time out, so anticipating another lap one, turn one kerfuffle, and getting to breeze by from the back of the grid.
Well, as much as I think that is a smart strategy, it could also work against you in that, let's say, there isn't all of the carnage we expect to happen in turn one, and then you're stuck in a situation where overtaking is virtually impossible in some parts of this track. I mean, the best chance is in one of the hairpins, and if the driver ahead of you knows how to defend, it's going to be quite difficult. But yeah, no, I think certainly just to look at both sides of the coin, but at the end of the day, rolling start, turn one is not exactly a heavy braking zone, it's a dab of the brake, shift down a gear, and turn in and hope for the best. So with that kind of corner, certainly there's very many a situation that can play out, unless everybody just decides, to keep a cool head about that, because as we always say, the race is not won in turn one, so best to keep your head and your wits about you and try to get a little later on. But we are into the qualifying session. 15 minutes have started. We're down a minute already, and all of the drivers seem to be on their outlaps. So we're looking to see what we will get out of these drivers for this qualifying session. I think your starting position could play a very important role in this race.
Most definitely, Chad. And speaking of the first corner, we saw Tim Stahl going through that first complex there. It's a very quick, you hardly saw it, you blinked and you missed it the first 2-3 corners. Pretty much one fluid motion, which leads up to quite a long sweeping hairpin to the right, another little bit of a kink to the left, and a straight heading up into this hairpin here. The left-hander with quite the sausage curb on the inside. Tim there avoiding that curb, and wisely so, coming up to the second hairpin of the track. Quite a few hairpins here, and it's gonna play out very nice for those who are attacking. There's a lot of opportunities to attack, but as I said, a relatively short track, only 7 corners, a few kinks here and there before you reach another hairpin, which leads you onto the start-finish straight. So we're gonna be seeing drivers stay pretty close to each other. The field is already tight knit in terms of pace. 106s, 107s are all across the board. Tim there not wasting any time, dipping into the 106s, a 106.7 from him. He's been the fastest man throughout the week of practice, and he keeps that title. Jaden Harrison, a 107 dead from him. Senna Somerville 9/10 shy from Jaden Harrison. Mikhail Charles just outside the 107s, a 108.07 from him. So we're still on board with Tim here, improving in the first sector over that stonking time he set right out the gates. It is definitely close, Chad.
Yeah, and you know, Kale, we were looking at it and saying, boy, when we saw the 106.7, there might not have been another 5 tenths in it, but lap, another 7 tenths in it to get down to the 105. But his first lap was already immediately the 106.7, and he is still going quicker. So, who is to say that? I don't think we'll get quite down to the 105s, but we could get into the low 106s if these drivers continue to find a 10th here and there. But again, around a track like this, all you're going to find is a 10th here or there. So even the drivers that look to be close in terms of the timing sheets, it is a lot more pronounced around a track like this as Jaden does improve to a 106.8. Around a track this short, 2.3 kilometers, 7 corners, there's not much time to, well, there's not much corners in which you can lose dramatic amounts of times if you're on similar pace. So that 110 is about the margin you expect to see as Raven Plummer slots herself in between Jaden Harrison and Tim Stahl to kind of the gap is not going to be as pronounced as it would be around a longer track per se.
Definitely.
But yeah, so we will see how this plays out throughout the rest of the qualifying session. Certainly, it just takes a 10th to find yourself that much further up the grid.
Right, absolutely, and it's not very much between Tim, Raven, and Jaden. About one, well, I think less than a 10th between them all, or just thereabout, splitting the top 3 drivers. And speaking of this track, it is, I'm not going to go through the entire name again, but we're here at Turagua, 2.3 kilometers, relatively short track, 7 corners, and we are, of course, in our fan favorite, the latest edition of our custom-built touring cars, the Mitsubishi Lancer, Chevy Cruze, the Ford Focus, and the Toyota Corolla.
And whilst you were going through that there, Kale Raven Plummer puts herself at the top of the timing sheets in 106.6. So we are threatening to get into the low 106s. I think Raven is driving the Mitsubishi. I found that the Toyota Corolla and the Mitsubishi are the better 2 feeling cars around this track. I didn't drive all 4, but I did drive 3 out of the 4. And that Lancer and that Corolla definitely do feel a lot smoother around the track than the Chevy did. So maybe this is one of those tracks where Japan power helps, or well, Japanese tuning helps, in that it's a short track with very quick turns as opposed to the missiles that are in the American cars.
Right. Yep, well, whatever car you're using, it seems as though, well, let me pause there, Jaden Harrison giving Raven a run for her money as usual, now sits at the top of the timing sheets at 106.6 from Jaden. Just about 6 tenths, exactly, sorry, 600ths, my apologies, of a second between those 2 drivers. Chaddy, you called it perfectly. They're edging closer and closer towards that 106.5 marker, and we can see in the chat here, a couple of watchers are, fearing that dreaded turn 1, and we are anticipating that there are going to be a couple of drivers who are going to be quite opportunistic, maybe too much so, to be going 2 and 3 wide into that turn 1. Hopefully, it is going to be a clean race. Keeping in mind what happened last time around in the first round of the CTCC. We are of our season 2. We're expecting drivers to see that as a wake-up call and to realize that these cars are not that thin, so there's only so much space.
To the fans out there that might not know what we're about, all of these drivers did go through a licensing process, so it's not that they aren't licensed drivers, right? It's not that it's random people that don't know what they're doing. These drivers have competed before, know how competition works. It's just you just see that small gap and it gets better on the judgment sometimes. Things go awry. So it's not, you might have, for those that might have watched a race last week and saw some of the carnage, it's not necessarily that the drivers don't know what's what. It's just a little bit of zeal sometimes goes a long way in ruining a race. But Raven Plummer right now does not look to be ruining her race at all. I was trying to find the transition. It failed miserably.
Raven there, finding a tenth and a half out of nowhere, setting the fastest lap out of anyone, or sorry, the fastest time of the first sector, improving on her personal best in the second sector. That final corner, I think she's got it down to a science now, getting it's going to be an improvement from her again, I believe. Was it? No, it looks like she cut.
Did she invalidate somewhere?
That she will
Might have been turn 1.
she will be beating herself about that one, because a tenth and a half is almost an eternity at a track like this. You don't just find that anywhere, so perhaps wherever she found that time, it was a bit of a cut here or there, but I'm still expecting lots from all these drivers, going right down to Eric Ferreira, who is Nicholas racing? Yes, Nicholas is racing. Going right down to Nicholas Donald, currently sitting in 11th. The field is split by just over 2 seconds. Yep, and Tim Stahl makes that gap a little bit wider. Now it's going into the 106s, 6.5s. We are finally at that mid 106 range. I'm not sure how much further these drivers can go.
Well, we have about 5 seconds for which these drivers can certainly, improve that much more. But as I did say, it's going to come down to tenths. And if you look at the top 3 right now, about a tenth and change separates the top 3. So we are in for a race here, and I mean, it's. I said it earlier, Caleb, but turn 1 makes or breaks your lap. The lap that Raven was up that tenth and a half. All that probably happened is she just chucked the car into turn 1 and managed to come out pointing the right way, but just get that one wheel off the track at the wrong point, because really and truly turns 1, 2, 3 is really a right hand kink and a straight through that chicane. You don't really find any of the corners in that chicane being taken. You straight line that chicane completely. So it's all about the speed that you can carry on entry into turn 1 and come and manage to keep one wheel at least off the dirt, and that will maximize the time that you produce, particularly in sector 1. Obviously there are other corners to contend with. The 2 hairpins are nothing to scoff at, but the point being, most of the time that any driver is looking to find is likely in turn 1, because that is where it's all about how brave you are and how much speed you're willing to try and get.
That's the word, Chad. I was going to say it. It's all about who is going to be the bravest, because let's not forget that there is very big tire barrier looming large right there, very close to the left hand side there of the entrance to that corner, the first corner. So you're going to be keeping one wheel within the track limits, but you also have to be basically missing that barrier, so we're gonna be seeing how close they'll be shaving it here as we come down to the final moments of the qualifying session. And it's not all about the 106s. Looking back into the 107s here, Roger Keller with a 107.0, just over a tenth or less than a tenth ahead of Senna Somerville. So those two, they're trying to get track position over each other for the qualifying session. Mikhail Charles at 107.6 has Oswin Wilson only 2 tenths behind him, and another 2 tenths behind him is Nicholas Donald, who I'm not sure. Let me double check if that is his best time of the evening, and that's right, a 108.0 from Nicholas Donald, who is leading us in the 108s. Another, what's that, 10th and a half almost behind him is Stefan Tremblay, and we can see there Senna absolutely cheesing those corners there. If you get it wrong, you're gonna be getting it really wrong.
Yes,
so we're gonna keep our eye out on that set of corners. There's Kimani Eastman at 108.2, nothing between himself and Eric Ferreira.
Kayla is looking up and down the timing sheets, and I saw Kimani Eastman down there in P10 on a 102.8, on a 108.2, my apologies. And I was thinking, I saw his times in the practice session. He was certainly mid 107s at some point in time. So I'm wondering if Kimani Eastman is out there taking the commentator strategy and just trying to nudge his way to the back there a bit just to see what happens coming out of turn one, because I think Kimani Isan has a little bit more time in the tank. Either that or he's just not hooking it up here in the qualifying session, which what a time to get it wrong. But either way, he could find himself in a favorable position there if what we expect to happen in turn one turns out to be how that plays out.
Well, I won't be saying I'm expecting it, Chad. I will not be putting any curse on turn one, lap one. Whatever happens, happens. All we know is that there's a barrier waiting for you. There's 3 curbs trying to throw you away, and there's about, 9 other drivers who want to get right past you as quick as they possibly can. Is that a recipe for disaster? I don't know. I'm not a chef. But we will see what happens. Senna here, I'm not seeing an improvement for him in the first sector, perhaps invalidating in the first complex of corners. But it's still very close between himself and Roger Kello. Further up at the front, Tim feeling quite confident. 1 minute left in the qualifying session, and he is still, well, he was in the pits, just driving out now. Jaden Harrison making an improvement last time around in the 106.5s as well. Raven Plummer only a 10th adrift of the top 2 drivers. In the last couple of seconds here, I think we're going to see something pop off as Jaden sets the fastest middle sector of anyone out on track. But Tim Stahl, let's not forget about him, just left the pits. He will have time for one last lap, if not 2. So we're going to see who is really going to be taking the top step here. Someone parked there in the middle of the track, not sure what that was about. But Jaden Harrison in the 106.4s. And I think that's going to be it for Jaden. I think he thinks that's all he can do for right now. There's not much more in it. Tim Stahl here taking a very wide berth into the final quarter, getting as much speed as he can leading into that first couple of corner sections. We're going to ride on board with him to see if he can knock Jaden Harrison down a step. Raven Plummer also in the pits. It's all down to Tim Stahl here.
Absolutely, there are only 4 drivers left on track. There's a driver there driving out behind Tim Stahl, but any lap he does will not count. So it's the 4 drivers on track that could improve. Roger Keller and Senna Somerville still trying to challenge each other for their position, and Eric Ferreira down there trying to see if he can bump himself up a spot or 2. But we are on board with one Tim Stahl, who is trying to match or exceed Jaden Harrison, who is just slightly ahead of him. This should be the end of sector 1 here, but we're not getting a notification as to what he did at the end of that sector, so we will just have to see when he gets back to the line. I am looking at it and there was no improvement in sector 1, actually looking at the live timing, so, and none in sector 2. So it seems that Jaden Harrison might be securely in pole position, looking at Tim Stahl's time, maybe just not hooking it up there with the one-shot quali kind of format there as he exited the pits with just about enough time to get 1 lap in, and no improvement there for Tim Stahl. So Jaden Harrison looks comfortably on pole at the moment, unless Senna Somerville, or this lap should not count. Senna certainly would have crossed the line after the checkered flag, so I don't know how he isn't seeing the checkered flag, but maybe that's just a glitch on the timing sheet. However, yeah, I think at this point it is safe to assume Jaden Harrison on pole from Tim Stahl starting alongside him. Raven Plummer and Roger Keller, and at some point Roger Keller dipped right down into the 106s, pipping Senna Somerville by another half a tenth. So yeah, just about 4 drivers in the 106s, and the top 3 separated by just over 2/10 of a second. And again, 1 lap pace is only half the battle. You still have to do it consistently for a duration of 20 minutes plus 1 lap, and then when we get time for the reverse grid, the top 10 will be reversed, and then you have to pick your way through some traffic. So these rivals will certainly be tested here this evening as we are moving into race conditions. Race number 1 will be starting in a few moments time, and Jaden Harrison will see if he can continue his advantage as we get into the first race.
So Jaden has done it again. We are no stranger to this kind of behavior from Jaden. He's been
himself.
He has been rather consistent in the 106.9s, maybe 8s during practice, and now he has somehow managed to find 3/4 tenths. That's just the Jaden way. Tim Stahl put up an excellent fight but was unable to hook it up in the final moments here. And we'll have to settle for starting behind Jaden. Behind him is Raven Plummer. An excellent run from her. Improvements all throughout the qualifying and practice sessions. A 106.6 for Raven Plummer. Roger Keller sits on the second row beside her. A 106.9, 3/10 adrift. Senna Somerville there, the first in the 107 bracket. It's a 107.1, followed by Mikhail Charles with a 107.6. A 107.6 also for Oswin Wilson. Only about 0.08 of a second separating himself and Charles. And Nicholas Donald in 8th with a 108.01. Another 1.2 tenths there separating him from Eric Ferreira. Stephen Tremblay with a 108.1 as well. My goodness. the 108s are extremely close there. And Kimani Eastman, as we say, we think he is definitely trying the strategy we mentioned a little earlier. Start at the back, see what happens at the front, and then take it from there. But we will be having a rolling start front of the pack to lead us away. Pretty much a formation lap before we get going with the rolling start here, so the drivers will be remaining stationary as the safety car makes its way through to lead them away. And we can see them there now getting a move on, keeping a safe distance between themselves. It is pretty much one line through the entire first sector, so hopefully they keep it clean here on the formation lap, so we can get up to racing speed in no time. It's going to be 20 minutes plus one, rather 21 minutes plus one lap. Not sure what happened there. It's a bit of a glitch. We'll be starting that formation lap once.
Restarting. Yeah, no, certainly we're looking at it, and as you covered the grid there, I'm still just looking at Kimani Eastman comfortably in last place. I think that fellow is playing a mind game at the moment, and it might be a very cerebral approach here for Kimani Eastman, but certainly we will see if that is the case when we get going racing. But as we always mention, you know, we're heading into race conditions. Qualifying is over. The drivers did their jobs as far as quali goes, and that puts them where they start on the grid. But it's all about what you do for the next 20 minutes now to see where these drivers can get themselves in terms of positions gained or lost over the span of that 20 minutes. And it will be an interesting one. I think Raven Plummer, having spoken to her a few times, always indicates that she sets her car up for a more race pace friendly dynamic, so we will see if she can challenge the top two. I mean, she was only about a 10th and a half off pole anyway, so she could be one to watch here. Tim Stahl and Jaden Harrison will certainly be going at it. They're separated by less than a 10. And then Senna Somerville and Roger Keller were trading times, although Roger went a little bit quicker there towards the end of the quali session. But battles are not just at the front, ladies and gentlemen, because the last four drivers were separated by about 0.2 of a second.
If even that much. 0.02 of a second between Eric Ferreira and Kimani Eastman. I think it was Tremblay, rather. My apologies. So we're going to be having races as usual. It's going to be tight at the front, in the middle, and at the back of the field. We can see the drivers here going 2 by 2 as the safety car peels off to get back into the pits. We are going to be going under green flag running here in just a few moments, and I don't know what to say as it, Chad. I'm anticipating what's going to be happening.
Oh, absolutely. We are going to get green flag racing with 19 minutes to go in this race, and already the drivers are looking to press their advantage, and certainly by the time we get to turn one, we will see what decisions these drivers have made in terms of their approach to this race. Again, the race cannot be won in that turn, ladies and gentlemen, and it looks like we are a go. And Jaden already defending there from Tim Stahl, and there is some contact in the background there. And does everybody make it through more or less cleanly? It seems that way. Kimani Easton still in last position there.
But there's
So,
Mikhail Charles going up the inside of Roger Killer. Roger Killer saw it coming and left the space, and Mikhail there not making any contact. It seems as though everyone got away quite cleanly. It didn't work out for Kimani, I think you're about to say there. All the drivers getting away fairly cleanly. Kimani late on the brakes trying to get a move done on Stefan Tremblay. Jaden there going defensive absolutely immediately to just remove the thought from Tim Stahl. Oh, a bit of a concertina effect. Some contact there.
Somebody seemed to have dropped it on the apex of the hairpin, and that kind of just gifted Kimani the inside line to gain himself 3 possessions in one go. Roger Keller and Senna Somerville, they're still going at it. They've been going at it all through the qualifying session and continue the battle here. And looking up and down the field, it seems everybody is either in the Corolla or the Mitsubishi. So it seems my assessment of those 2 cars being the cars of choice was quite accurate. But we certainly will be getting more battles going. The top 3 separated by less than a second, and the battles behind also looking quite promising. So we will certainly see what's happening here as we progress into this race. We are now on board with Mikhail Charles, who is putting the pressure on one Roger Keller, who lost the position out to Senna Somerville, and Roger having to defend heavily here.
But he leaves the door open. Chad, I think that's Mikhail going down the inside, getting that move done on. Did he? Or did
yes, he did.
He did get the move done. Excellent move
no,
there.
he didn't.
Did
I
he?
think there's a fight there ensuing between Roger, Senna, and Mikhail Charles, and Oswald Wilson has also joined that fight. So these 4 drivers are battling for the first spot off of the podium at the moment. Senna Somerville holds on to it for the time being, and the 2 drivers behind Oswald Wilson and Mikhail Charles. Mikhail there defending the inside line and getting his elbows out on Oswald Wilson there.
Definitely.
To make sure that he keeps that. No, Oswald got the move done. I apologize, folks, that their cars are looking very similar at the moment, but Oswald Wilson seems to have gotten that move done on Mikhail Charles. Senna Somerville ahead of Roger Keller from Oswald Wilson and Mikhail Charles. Those 4 drivers will certainly be the battle to watch at the moment. And Roger still trying to find a way past Senna. It seems Roger might have just a bit more pace than Senna Somerville at the moment, and is just looking for an opportunity to try and get that move done.
And I think he may be, well, this camera angle is giving me getting me quite confused there.
Between the 2 of them, and that is Roger losing out 3 positions in one go. Kimani is now promoted to 7th position behind Mikhail Charles, and these drivers will be resuming that battle in a moment's time. Oswald Wilson there and Mikhail
Trying
Charles
to switch back, but another piece of contact there for Mikhail Charles, and he's gonna have to stay stationary and try and rejoin safely. Very unfortunate for him there. It was looking to get very racy between those 4 drivers once again, but we're going to turn our attention to the front of the pack as Tim Starr they're going a bit deep, giving Raven Plummer a little bit of a look there. Yeah, Jaden running off into the distance, a second, 1.2 seconds between himself and Tim behind. He has it all to lose here, but at the same time, so does Tim. Tim was trying to get by from the very start of this race, and Jaden saying absolutely not. No, Raven Plummer is definitely on a mission here, and I think she is
trying to utilize that slipstream as best she can at any point on the track. And these 2 drivers are showing the level of trust that you expect to see in this level of racing. There's not much space given, but they're still managing to keep it quite clean. Raven Plummer is putting the pressure on Tim Stahl there. This is not where a move is going to get done, ladies and gentlemen. Turn 1 is not the place to do it. You have 3 hairpins after this, and that is where you must try and set up your move for. But as long as the defending driver has the choice to choose a line, should just defend the inside and manage to maintain that position. So we would certainly watch to see if Raven tries to get him off the racing line at any point in time, take him out of position to try and set up through one of these corners. Maybe the final corner might be a good place to have a look in, actually.
Like the final corner, I mean, the final corner, well, pretty much second to last corner, they're pretty much identical. 3 hairpins you mentioned, kind of 4. But speaking of lines, Chad, I'm seeing that Tim is taking quite a wider line heading into that first hairpin compared to Raven, but it seems to be working for him. But here in the final corner, he's going a bit deep, and Raven is taking quite a late apex to get for her a better run and perhaps a higher top speed at the end of the start-finish straight. But even though she's catching, catching is one thing, passing is another, and on a track as tight as this, you're gonna have very few opportunities to make a move. And so she's just gonna have to stay relevant, stay there in his rearview mirror, take up space in his mind, and hopefully catch him off guard, or maybe just pressure him into a mistake. Tim not known for mistakes, but I think anything can happen here, as you see Roger Killer getting very close to Oswin Wilson here. It's at the battle for 4th position.
Yeah, it's still the battle for 4th position between these 3 drivers. And I was looking at, I know we're on board with this battle right now, but I was looking at Raven going through turn 1. And that's another factor these drivers will have to contend with, because I am certain that she got a track limits violation going through turn 1. I saw all 4 wheels off at one of the apexes that followed turn 1. So these drivers will have to be mindful of the fact that they can get a driving penalty for the track cuts, as we also saw Roger Keller there putting all 4 wheels off at the entry to that hairpin. So certainly these drivers will have to watch what they do in terms of track limits as we get later into this race. But we're almost at the halfway stage, and it's been a pretty solid grid overall. None of these drivers have lost major positions, with the exception of Mikhail Charles, who finds himself down in last at the moment. But the battle has been raging between Senna, Oswin, and Roger for quite some time. Senna managing to hold that position off, and you can see that their fight has caused quite the chasm between 3rd and 4th. There's 10 seconds separating Raven Plummer from Roger Keller, and the fighting between Raven and Tim Stahl has given Jaden quite an advantage as well, about 2 seconds up the road, as Tim has had to defend corner after corner from Raven Plummer, adjusting his lines, not taking the quickest line through the corner, and that costs you time, as Stephen Tremblay and Eric Ferreira are going side by side heading towards the final hairpin, and Tremblay on the inside for that small kink, but turns to the outside. Will Ferreira manage to keep it? There's a switch back on, and they will continue to be side by side. This is brilliant racing from these two. They are giving each other space, it is respectful, and they have managed to keep the battle going all the way up to turn 1. This is where somebody's gonna have to give it up though. You're not gonna make it through that corner side by side, but it seems Tremblay manages to keep that position. Ferreira almost looks to be right back on the attack, and Tremblay tried to close the door there and caused a little bit of contact, as Ferreira did earn the right to be there. He was alongside and should have been left a little more space there.
I am gonna have to agree with you there, Chad. I was gonna say bravery is the name of the game, and they got through the first corner cleanly. That's where you would expect any contact to take place. But I think Ferreira there and Tremblay just not giving each other enough room into the first hairpin, causing that unfortunate collision. And there is Ferreira trying to get by, or rather Mikhail Charles catching up to the back of the pack now, trying to get by Stefan, but there's Jaden Harrison, the race leader, getting it wrong in the first corner and dropping down the order. It's going to be big damage for Jaden, and even bigger damage to his race, as he's now 7 seconds adrift of Tim Stahl and Raven Plummer. That is very unfortunate
like
there.
Heavy contact with the outside barrier there. You mentioned it in the qualifying session, Kale. Bravery is the name of the game, and sometimes, as much as fortune should favor the brave, it's not always the case. Jaden Harrison there maybe a little too aggressive on the power, trying to get out of turn 1, and found himself in the tire barrier on the outside of that corner. Tim Stahl now takes the lead of that race and is about a second clear of Raven Plummer, who needs to get back on the offensive, as the race win is now what they're playing for as opposed to P2. So Raven has some work to do there to try and get back into that competition, but we're still on board with this four-way fight, 4p4, and it has been raging all throughout this race. These four drivers not giving each other any chance to breathe. They're just perched waiting for the first mistake to occur, or for the driver to leave the right opening and for them to take advantage. Senna Somerville from Roger Keller from Oswin Wilson and Kimani Eastman just sitting very nicely in P7 to kind of pick up the scraps of anything that happens here. So we will definitely see if there is anything to come from these four. Oswin Wilson looking to get very racy with Roger Keller there. Those two have tangled before, and we will see what happens this time around.
Oswin, the only or one of two drivers piloting the Ford that may be a secret ingredient, or maybe why he's not further up the order. Regardless, he is putting up quite the fight with this pack here, the midfield pack, and I'm gonna have to agree with you again. I think he has maybe a little bit more pace than Roger Keller. He's managing to stay very close, and when he does fall out of that 1 second gap, he very quickly finds himself right back up there. So
saw him almost pushing Roger Keller through that final corner a while ago, you know, giving him the hurry up to try and get something going. Senna Somerville has been sitting too nicely in P4 on challenge for quite some time, but Roger there now maybe getting that hurry up, was trying to find somewhere to have a look at Senna Somerville there, but Senna positioning that car very nicely through the apex of turn 3. And these drivers will continue to rage that battle as Oswin
trying to get past Roger there, but it's contact between Senna, Oswin, and Roger that demotes Somerville, who is facing the wrong way there, down to 7th. Kimani Eastman picks up the scraps up to 6th now. Oswin Wilson into 4th, and Roger Keller into 5th. Not quite a safety car, a bit of a contact there, but everyone keeps it moving. This is exactly what Kimani's been waiting for. I think that was initiated by Oswin trying to go down the inside of Roger Keller into the second hairpin, whilst Roger was trying to make a move on Senna, and 3 into 1, it doesn't work.
Yeah,
Chad.
no, somebody, you know, just kind of missed their breaking point there, watching the battle raging around you, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in a very awkward position as Ferreira and Charles are going at it here in the final corner. Ferreira behind Charles trying to figure out where can I get this move done. I think Mikhail Charles might be driving with some damage. I'm not sure how bad the damage is affecting him at the moment, but Ferreira all over the back of him and is looking to, I don't know what he's looking to do there, but that is not the corner to have that look. However, manages to just back out of it and lives to fight another day. We will be checking on the progress of those two, but Roger Keller still right there with Oswin Wilson. These two have been going at it all race. Kimani Eastman also right there in the mix, and I'm telling you, Kimani has played an absolutely opportunistic race here today, starting from last place, and has found himself up to 6 just by picking his spots, keeping his nose clean, and just capitalizing on others' mistakes around him. Senna Somerville there in the background wants to get back up to this group, as he was leading this group for a majority of this race. Just a bit of contact there from Keller and Wilson created the drama that demoted Senna 3 positions, but I'm sure he will be figuring out how he can regroup and get back on the offensive.
Roger there with a very different line to Oswin ahead, getting on the power a lot earlier, taking that corner a lot wider. I'm not sure if that worked out for him. The gap is coming down. Let's see what happens here on the brakes. Let's not forget Kimani Eastman there. Not even in the background, he's very relevant in this fight here. If Oswin or Roger make another mistake or another little bit of contact, Kimani Eastman will be promoted up into the first position of the podium. That's P4. He's going to definitely be keeping a keen eye on the two drivers ahead of him, who have been battling tooth and nail for the entirety of this race, and they're now side by side heading into the final corner. Who is going to come out on top? I think Roger there just thinking a bit better of it and settling for the slipstream rather than the position. But I don't think there is, well, it's not even a matter of think, there's no way to get a move done heading into the first corner. So Roger there, not sure what he's playing at, but whatever it is, I'm hoping that it's working for him, because if he makes a mistake, Chad.
No, Kimani is still right there waiting to capitalize after all, and I thought he had that move done in the final corner there, and I don't know why he backed out. Maybe just could not get the power down, having to tighten up his line there towards the exit of the corner, and that cost him the time that was required for Oswin Wilson to maintain that position. He seems to have the pace advantage over Oswin, but just cannot find a place to get it done, and it must be frustrating him. You see him taking different lines there, trying to figure out, what do I have to throw at this man to get this position away from him. He's just looking anywhere he can, trying to figure out, do I go outside, inside, do I try and get him off his line?
And there's Kimani Eastman getting very close there.
Yeah, Kimani there running deep into that corner, as well as I think Roger might have had to back out of it a little, trying to figure out how to position his car. But Oswin Wilson is just keeping his car nice in position, and Roger here, is this frustration welling up? I thought he was trying to have a look there into turn one, but as we keep mentioning, that is not the corner for it. You cannot make a move stick going through turn one. It is likely to end in catastrophe. Kimani Easton still right with this group, and I think Senna Somerville, I mean, he is gaining on this group, but given the fighting that is taking place, you'd think he'd be gaining a little bit quicker than he is. I'm not sure if he's taken on some damage that is giving him a bit of grief behind as well. But these drivers are now coming down to the dying stages of the race. There's a little over 2 minutes to play and a lap, so that's about 3 laps to go, basically.
It's 3 more laps for Kimani to make something happen here. All the while, I have been watching this minicam, the helicam, and all I keep seeing is Kimani getting very close to Raja and just backing out right at the last moment to avoid contact and avoid catastrophe. I don't think he's going to be staying behind Raja for very long. 1.5 minutes left to go in this race. And I think Kimani Eastman is going to make something happen here heading into the final moments of this race. Further up ahead, Tim Stahl still leading this race, 1.7 seconds off Raven Plummer. I'm not sure if there's going to be enough time for her to make something happen. Jaden Harrison there, we see him coming around with the second hairpin. Still in third position, unfortunately, basically threw that race away, that race when he's still on the podium. So I guess that's going to have to be enough for him. Oswin Wilson in fourth position, 12 seconds adrift of Jaden, but you can't. He cannot focus on what's ahead of him. He has to be focusing on Roger Keller and the charging Kimani Eastman behind. Senna Somerville has been gaining. It was 3 seconds, and now it's down to 2 seconds, the gap between himself and the group that he was at one point leading. Stephen Tremblay, 14 seconds adrift from that mid-pack, but here fighting his own battles here. It looks as though he may have a bit of damage, or perhaps was just letting through Mikhail Charles. He probably realized he's clearly faster. Stephen may have a bit of damage after that contact with Ferreira earlier in this race, and Ferreira there holding off not the final position, and that will be going to Nicholas Donald, who almost looks as though he's about to be lapped here. But there are some moves being made between Roger Keller and Oswin Wilson.
Do you know what we call this time on the race scale?
Desperation.
Desperate time. Absolutely. We are down to the dying moments of the race. It is time to get it done, or this will be the end of your chances to improve your position. So we have about 1 lap to go, as the drivers in the lead will be crossing the start-finish line in a few moments time, and that will be the start of the final lap as time has elapsed. So we are approaching the start of the final lap for Roger Keller to get something done, and I'm sure he will be sitting in that cockpit thinking, how or where can I get this done, because he has been at it for the majority of this race, trying to gain that position, and they are side by side heading towards turn one, and it is a game of chicken, ladies and gentlemen. Who is gonna back out? Nobody is backing out, and Roger Keller there tried a little too hard to get it
and
done.
there's that contact we were expecting. Kimani Eastman loving it, moving up into fourth position. We saw it coming, but I didn't think it would be happening in such a manner as this. Chad here, Kimani gifted that fourth position. Oswin and Roger just could not keep it together for the final moment. But coming up across the line here, it's going to be Tim Stahl. He took the lead from Jaden Harrison, or rather, Jaden gave it away. But regardless, it's a race victory for Tim Stahl. And Raven Plummer comes across the line in second position, 2 seconds adrift. Jaden Harrison is going to be crossing the line now, third for him. And Kimani Eastman is going to be next across the line, coming through the final corner as Oswin and Roger are still battling it out. I think Oswin here just a little bit too far ahead for Roger to make a move. But Kimani Eastman, I lift my cap to him. He definitely deserved this position here. Kept his nose clean. I don't think he's had one single contact with any other driver.
There might have been a small contact here or there, but rubbing is racing, as they say. It's nothing that you write to the steward's office about. And certainly Kimani Eastman coming from last on the grid, finishing just off the podium here, managing to work his way through the field just by keeping his nose clean. And we did talk about it being desperation time there for Roger Keller, and he certainly tried to get aggressive, but I think frustration might have bubbled a little bit there for him to try and make that move into turn one, and that is where it all went wrong. We said it all race, turn one is not the place for that move to occur, and when he tried to make that move into turn one, it certainly caused the carnage that, well, it wasn't really carnage, it was simply a little bit of contact that caused some unsettling of the cars, and that created the opportunity for Kimani Eastman to secure fourth position in this race. But Tim Stahl, the driver that seized upon Jaden Harrison's mistake, took the victory from Raven Plummer, who just sat there trying to make something happen all race, but did not manage to close the gap enough to get anything done. And Jaden Harrison here snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, as he seemed comfortably out in front with the pace advantage, but only managed to bring it home in third, having made some heavy contact with the barrier at turn one. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes race number one of the evening. Certainly was an action-packed race, gave us some good racing action, managed to keep it fairly clean, but just towards the end there, it did get a little choppy when you get into desperation time. However, cannot complain about the action we just witnessed.
And as a matter of fact, Chad, looking back now, well, memory, it looked as though Oswin just got a little bit squirrely there coming through the first corner, and I think Roger tried to make a move. So I don't think it was necessarily the kind of desperation we thought it was. It looked as though Oswin just got a little bit out of control and Roger made a little bit of contact with him, not expecting that big slowdown, and Oswin there just running off into the grass and allowing Kimani to just breeze into that fourth position. But it's going to be the reverse grid now. Tim Stahl, who took the victory in the first race, is going to be starting in P10, Raven Plummer in P9, Jaden Harrison in P8, and so on and so forth. It's going to be another rolling start, another 21 minutes plus 1 lap of racing action. We're going to see Stéphane Tremblay leading the pack away, having finished in P10. Nicholas Donald finishing outside of the top 10. It's going to start in P11.
And he must be the driver kicking himself, because all he had to do was gain one position to start from pole. I always say the first driver outside the top 10 always must feel like a bag juice. It's just, it could have been P1, but now it's P last. But I digress. We're about to move into the second race of the evening, and we will see what action we get. Once again, when you get into the reverse grid, you have to think about the fact that the quicker drivers, the drivers with the consistent pace, start from further down the order and will have to try and make their way through the field. They should be picking their spots to make these moves in the cleanest possible way, so that they can make their way up the field.
If Nicholas Donald is going to feel like a bag juice, Chad, then I can only imagine how Jane will be feeling, having given away that race victory. He, settles for P3, and I see here in the chat, Kimani Washaw done a St. Thomas since last week. I'm not sure what that means, but whatever he's been doing,
Oh my,
it's working.
I quite agree because that is a 180 in terms of luck, but we are getting going here. Nicholas Donald is starting from the front of the grid, so it seems as though we have extended the reverse grid all the way down the order. So Tim Stahl will start 11th and Nicholas Donald starts on pole, it seems. But yeah, no, I quite agree with that comment. The race that Kimani had last week was one filled with bad luck and incidents, whereas coming into today, just drove his race ever so nicely and was gifted position after position. And I say gifted in the most respectful way because it's not as though Kimani did not show the pace and the drive to be in that position, but it was certainly a matter of keeping his nose as clean as it possibly could stay and coming out in that P4 position.
I think we can call that a good day at the office for Kimani Eastman. But the day is not yet finished. We have one more race to get through, and it's going to be Nicholas Donald, it seems, leading us away from Stephen Tremblay, Senna Somerville, and Eric Ferreira. They're sharing the same piece of racetrack once again. Oswin Wilson, Roger Keller, and Mikhail Charles will be battling it out once again. Kimani Eastman is going to be starting right in front of the Titans of the last race, Jaden Harrison, Raven Plummer, and Tim Stahl in P12. It's going to be anyone's race with this format here, so we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens. The safety car about to pull away from the pack now. We can see, I believe that is Eric Ferreira there, weaving to get some heat into those tires. He realizes the opportunity ahead of him with the position he's in and the positions he can make. He wants to do everything he can to maintain this track position and improve from here. Senna Somerville, his first race did not go how he wanted, so we'll definitely be keeping an eye on him for the start of this race as well. It's about to go green flag running.
We will see if Nicholas Donald can take that advantage into turn one, as they should be off and racing now. And looking in the background, everybody jockeying for position. You do not go too wide into that corner, but they managed to keep it fairly clean. And Senna Somerville there, aggressive to start this race, maybe sees this as his opportunity, gets into the lead and tries to extend the gap whilst the other drivers are trying to charge through. He certainly has a pace advantage over Nicholas Donald ahead of him, so we will see if he can put that pace advantage to good use in terms of trying to extend an advantage over the drivers that could threaten that position further back in the order. We are seeing Mikhail Charles and Oswin Wilson battling, and this is a resumption from race number one. These drivers were certainly battling it out in the first race, and we will see that battle pick up right where it left off. The field is very bunched together at the moment. Raven Plummer and Jaden Harrison side by side there, going down to the final corner. And how is that going to pan out? Certainly Raven Plummer looking aggressive to go around the outside, but Jaden Harrison also aggressive, and that cost... Was that Raven or was that Roger? There seems to have been Roger. I'm not sure if some contact happened there between Roger and Jaden.
It looked as one of the... Well, I think it was Roger may have just missed his braking point there, ran a bit wide. Jaden tried to go around it, but it did not work out for him. A little bit of contact between them. Here's Nicholas Donald trying to hold Senna Somerville to dry around the outside and maintains that lead. Senna is trying to get past. He shies to the inside, and there's Stefan also trying to make a move on Senna. Senna there running off the track, allowing Nicholas to get back on the inside. It's a switchback for Nicholas Donald, who keeps the lead of this race, but Senna has the inside for the third hairpin. Cuts Nicholas Donald there, forced to go off the track, and it's going to be a Senna Somerville lead for the time being from Nicholas Donald. From Stephen Tremblay, Raven Plummer gets up past Tim Stahl now, and he's going to be leading that group, or rather it's going to be Jaden Harrison leading that group in P7, Raven Plummer behind him, and Stahl. Raven there going very deep, and here is Stahl trying to get a move done on her, but not quite making it stick. She gets the better drive, the better exit out of the final corner, and he's gonna have to wheel and come again further up the order. It's Oswin Wilson almost side by side there with Eric Ferreira up ahead, and Eric
contact
there.
Oh my goodness, and that is heavy contact there for Oswin Wilson, who finds himself tumbling down the order. And that was a disaster that you did not expect to happen at that stage of the game, but certainly the race continues on. Jaden Harrison leading the charging leaders from the first race at the moment, trying to make a move there on Mikhail Charles. Mikhail almost trying to close the door, but Jaden Harrison bullying his way through to take that
Elbows
position
out.
and then switches to the inside to defend in the second chicane. And Raven Plummer, they're not trying to give Jaden any space to run away. He's trying to force that move on Mikhail Charles in the same way that Jaden Harrison did. We will certainly see what's going on with those two as Roger Keller behind with Tim Stahl there. And
Ooh, someone running off the track there.
There was some carnage there from behind. But Raven Plummer does seem to have gotten that move done and sits now ahead of Mikhail Charles. Mikhail Charles might be thinking about trying to make something happen heading towards turn one, and he does have a look there on the outside, and that could have been a recipe for disaster.
I win. Every time they go that close to that first corner, I am wincing, Chad. I'm expecting just a little bit of contact there. I think that was Eric Ferreira just picking up one too many track cuts and is unfortunately for him removed from this race. Rate that promotes Oswin and Roger up a position. Roger now in P9, Oswin in P10. Those two not quite as close as they were in the first race, but still battling it out. Kimani Eastman trying to fight against his old rival here, Mikhail Charles. These two have shared the same piece of track time and time again. Kimani Eastman managed to find himself in a advantageous position, but it seems as though this time around it's not going to work out for him. Stefan there getting it all wrong in the final corner and dropping down a couple of positions. That moves everyone up except us. That moves everyone up another position, and Jaden Harrison from the back of the grid is now in P3. Raven Plummer and Tim Stahl following suit in P4 and 5. Here's Raven dumbing to the inside. Jaden leaves the door open a little bit, or just not quite leaves it open, but left it ajar, showing Raven a little bit of light of day there. But here they are now. Is Raven trying to go down the inside? She made a move to the inside there, a little bit of a dummy for Jaden, and Jaden not getting the drive out of the corner that gifts, or rather that was Nicholas Donald. Whew. Nicholas Donald there not getting the drive out of the corner like he expected, allowing Jaden to pounce at that position, and he manages to move up into P2.
And Raven Plummer sticking with him this whole time. Anytime Jaden makes a move, Raven is right there to make that move with him. Certainly not wanting to give him too much breathing room. But this is what I mean. The advantage for Senna Somerville now, 6 seconds as the drivers that would have led the first race have finally made it through the field. But that is a 5.5 second rather advantage for Senna Somerville, which will be a hard gap to close for the remainder of this race. But behind, the battling continues to rage on, as that was Nicholas Donald there getting it very wrong and find themselves tumbling down the order.
A bit of pressure there. A bit of pressure from Mikhail Charles, and Nicholas Donald unable to withstand. Mikhail now moves up into P5. The best of the rest, I would have to call this position, sitting behind the lights of Somerville, Harrison, Plummer, and Stahl. Nicholas Donald there just getting it a bit wrong, and Kimani Eastman, of course, finds himself slowly but surely moving up the order back into P6. He's very familiar with this particular position on the track, but I think he's not going to be staying here for much longer. He's going to be putting down the lap times and challenging Mikhail Charles for that position, and perhaps challenging Tim Stahl at some point in time. There's Roger Killer getting past Nicholas Donald, who led this race at a point in time. He's not giving it up so easily though, fighting Roger Killer there for that P7. Killer for the time being keeping it, but it's going to be Nicholas Donald on the inside, and we know the inside has the advantage for the first corner. Will Roger concede the position, or will he be brave? It's Nicholas Donald there pulling out of that move, and Nicholas there almost running into that barrier and
gets it wrong and gives Alvin Wilson a chance to try and make a move as well. Will Nicholas Donald be able to hold on here? What started as a trickle of position loss has turned into a flood for Nicholas Donald very quickly, as he now finds himself P9, which is the second to last of the finishing positions at the moment. That happened very quickly there for Nicholas Donald. But as we look up the order, Tim Stahl is trying to put the pressure on Raven Plum, a reversal of roles from the first race. Raven was the chaser and Tim was the chasee. Now we have switched those positions around, and we will see if Tim Stahl fares better in trying to get a move done on Raven Plum. Or Raven not exactly shying away from Jaden either, just keeping within about a second of Jaden Harrison up ahead. They are closing the gap to Senna Somerville. Will it be quick enough for them to catch him before the end of the race to try and get a move done? Maybe. We have about 10.5 minutes of action to go, and the gap is 4 seconds, so it's come down about a second and a half in the past 2 or 3 laps. The gap is closing, and it is closing fairly quickly there, I say. So they should have a chance to take the fight to Senna Somerville before we get to the end of this race. We will certainly be observing how that pans out towards the latter stages of this race.
Ooh.
Up and down the order.
That is, it was about 3.5 seconds there between Jaden and Somerville, so Somerville perhaps getting a bit too comfortable out there in the lead of this race. He has 10 minutes to go, half race distance to maintain this 3.5 second lead. It was 4 seconds now, definitely closer to 3.5. So we'll be seeing rather how long it will take for this trio here, the charging trio, to catch up, and let's see what sparks will be flying and from whose car they will be flying from.
And what Senna Somerville needs to happen right now is for the fighting to pick up between those three, for them to be a little bit smarter than well, for them to not be as smart as they have been thus far, which is stick together and just hunt him down as a trio and then fight it out amongst yourselves once the job is done.
Speaking of hunting, here's Roger Keller. It's open season on Kimani Eastman. Kimani not making it easy for him at all, closing the door and rubbing doors there in the same breath. Speaking of closing down, here's Tim Stahl getting a little bit closer to Raven Plummer ahead. But we're going to go back to Roger Keller and Kimani Eastman here, heading up into the third hairpin, and Oswin Wilson trying to get into this little bit of action here. Kimani very close to, Roger Keller very close to Kimani Eastman. He has the outside for the final corner. Let's see what works for him here. Is Kimani going to force him to go wide? No, he tries to make the switchback work, Roger Keller, but did it work? Is it working? Is he closing? He sat in the slipstream. It doesn't seem as though he's getting much closer. Perhaps Kimani getting the exit of a lifetime, but that was a nice little battle there from Eastman and Keller. Eastman not giving it up easily at all, but I don't think he will have much of a choice this time around. He is a little bit rough coming through that first corner section there, and now Keller under attack from Oswin Wilson behind.
And that's exactly what Kimani needs for somebody else to join this battle, to give Roger a reason to be looking in his rearview mirror as opposed to looking ahead. And that might be the exact gift that Kimani Eastman needs arriving in the form of Oswin Wilson. We will see how that pans out, because once attack turns to defense, that gives the driver ahead a chance to open up a little bit of a gap. So we will see if Kimani can use this opportunity, as he is extending slightly at the moment whilst Oswin is trying to put the pressure on Roger Keller.
Speaking of,
while the front three in the 106
right,
8s compared to Senna Somerville, who is running mid 107s, closing down that gap. The gap now just about 1.5 seconds, as Kimani there on the inside from Roger and gets it wrong, and that will see Kimani Eastman having to rejoin 2 positions down. Roger Keller now in P6, still under pressure from Oswin Wilson, but he will be at least thankful that his road ahead is clear, and now with open air we will see if he can either extend from Oswin Wilson or at least have the clear air from which to defend properly.
They say pressure bus pipe in a chat, and I'm not sure if it was pressure for Kimani Eastman or just a little bit of misfortune there, losing out 2 positions to Roger and Oswin. But Roger absolutely kept it with him. And speaking of pressure, here is Senna Somerville. He had 6 seconds of a gap to himself and Jaden Harrison behind. That gap has now evaporated to now under 6/10. Jaden Harrison is about to snatch this position away from Senna. I'm not sure if Senna's going to make it. What do I mean if I'm not sure? He's going to make it hard for him. Definitely. Senna will be defending. We see him going defensive here. Jaden tries to dummy to the inside and he makes the move back around the outside. It's the dummy on Senna, and Jaden is trying to go around the outside. Shadows off Dover just last week. Senna maybe a little bit wise to that move here, but Jaden tries again around the outside and opens himself up to attack from Raven Plummer. Tim Stahl is loving this here. It's 3 wide between the drivers ahead, and I'm not sure who's going to come out on top. They move back into formation, perhaps helping each other to get past. And I hear Jaden tries down the inside, but the door was shut and he could not slow down in time. Tim trying to get around, and it's
all gone wrong.
All gone wrong, and that definitely is a curveball.
Yep.
Right there.
Yeah, that's a good word. Senna Somerville manages to rejoin in the lead of this race. I think Jaden may have thought, I need to give that position back. And Jaden has tumbled all the way down the board.
He has left the servo.
Tim Stahl now with his chance to attack. Oh, and Raven Plummer is right there in the mix. Or so it seems. There was some contact there, not sure who that was, but Raven Plummer emerges from all of that. He next to take the fight to Senna Somerville. Senna must have breathed a huge sigh of relief after the events of the last lap. We will now see if he can manage to withstand the pressure from Raven Plummer, who is also looking to go around the outside as Jaden tried to do previously. And Senna there running her wide, gets the elbows out and opens the door for Tim Stahl.
Not just Tim Stahl, but Mikhail Charles managed to close the gap to the trio ahead and is now sitting in a prime position to make something happen here. Senna going very defensive, forcing them to go around the outside. Senna, they're getting a bit of contact between himself and Tim Stahl. Raven Plummer moves back up into second position and is sitting in the slipstream. It's a 4-way battle for the lead with 4 minutes left to go in this race. It belongs to anyone. Senna putting on a masterclass here. He has one hand on the victory and does not want to let it go. It's going to be too wide into the first corner. Senna still manages to keep the lead, and Tim Stahl now moving up into P2. Mikhail Charles gets the run on Raven Plummer, and Raven was momentarily in first, now back into second. No, it's, I don't know, it's 3 wide going through the first hairpin, and Raven Plummer makes it work and moves herself back up into P2. What a piece of racing action here, Chad.
Absolutely, it is all popping off here in the final 3.5 minutes of this race. And I think Senna Somerville is the orchestrator at the moment. I'm not gonna lie, Senna seems to be picking his spots very wisely and causing the other drivers to trip over each other. Everybody is trying to get the victory, and at the end of the day, they work together to catch it. Now it's man for themselves in terms of who can make that move happen.
All the while, Mikhail Charles somehow losing a position out to Roger Keller. Roger came from out of nowhere and moves that black Toyota Camry up into P4. Not sure what happened there for Mikhail Charles, but
yeah, he seems to be a little bit unnerved because he is also taking heavy pressure. He might have been out of gas because he was taking pressure there from Oswald Wilson. But Raven Plummer alongside Senna Somerville looking to sweep around the outside there at turn 3. Senna still positioning that car ever so nicely through all of these corners. I had criticized the defense once in the past, but he was putting on a masterclass of defense here this evening, hanging Raven around the outside, just managing to look at him getting those elbows out. That might have been a little bit too aggressive, but I'll leave that to the stewards to decide how that one pans out. But Senna is making it extremely difficult for Raven to make anything happen here. Every time she looks to have the move around the outside, maybe fearing a repeat of himself and Jaden, Senna just opens up the steering wheel a little bit, and that leaves you no room in which to operate. Every time Raven tries to go around the outside, there he is again sending her wide. Senna is learning as he progresses through this race, and Tim Stahl right back into the fight with these two, and we will see if he takes that position once again from Raven Plummer and tries to take the fight to Senna Somerville himself. Senna there hard on the brakes, it seems, for that turn 1. Not sure if that is intentional These cartels have a unique way of defending, I've noticed.
I've definitely seen that before. And as you say, Carter, I mean, Mark Anthony Eaton is not here tonight, but he's the first person that came to my mind. Even the likes of Carlos Sainz did it at Singapore last year. Keep them rather close so that they will battle each other. And if you can manage to scrape in front and just manage to keep that track position, if you can do it for the next 1 minute and 10 seconds, it may be a little bit too long for him. I'm sure each one of these seconds passing extremely slowly for Senna Somerville.
Absolutely.
But so far he's managing this race excellently.
Absolutely, and you certainly sit there and wonder, okay, when is it all going to unravel? Can I keep this up? All of the thoughts are going through your head. You certainly think a lot more when you are defending, so that you can figure out how to position your car, what needs to happen. But it's always all about the exits. You just need to get the better exit out of each of these corners so that nobody can outdrive you into the next corner, and then just position your car to defend the apex of each of these corners. And he has been doing so quite well for the last 3 minutes, as we are now down to 20 seconds. And where are we, King?
We are now in the desperation zone, ladies and gentlemen. We saw what took place between Oswin Wilson, Roger Kelly, and Kimani Eastman in the last race around these times. Let's see what happens between these three. Now it's going to be Somerville, Plummer, and Stahl for the final lap work. If the timer has elapsed, we are officially about to start the final lap of this race. Senna has just 8 more corners to defend, and this race victory will be his. Here's Raven trying once again around the outside. Each time she tries it, Senna just does the same thing and ushers her towards the edge of the track. But I'm not sure she has a choice. It's the only part of the track he's leaving open to her.
Absolutely. Senna Somerville defending this one almost perfectly thus far. I say almost, you never want to be too ironclad on any of these things, but Senna has played this one perfectly for the most part. He just has about 6 corners left to defend, 5 corners left to defend before we get to the end of this one. Can he keep it together for the next 5 corners to see himself take the top spot?
And here's Raven.
Tries to outbrake him into the hairpin, and Senna Somerville just positioning that car to keep her at bay. Every time she tries to move to the outside, Senna just extends the apex a little bit, and that's all he needs to do to keep it going. Raven has but one more heavy braking zone in which to try and get this done. Senna Somerville has managed to play this one absolutely perfectly, and we now get into the final braking zone. Senna Somerville, he ran it wide,
a little bit too wide for Senna.
Raven Plummer, they are neck and neck heading down the straight. Raven Plummer just slightly ahead. We're about to have a photo finish, ladies and gentlemen. Who takes the victory here? It looks to be Raven Plummer.
It's
no gap between herself and Senna Somerville.
My goodness.
That's the photo finish. Senna just getting it slightly wrong on the final exit there, and that opened the door for Raven Plummer, and it seems she has managed to take the victory just in the dying moments there from Senna Somerville. And Senna will be kicking himself after a brilliant 4 minutes
he will
of
be
defense.
throwing himself against the walls, Chad. He had it right up until the very last corner. Oh my goodness. I'm not going to mince my words. I was rooting for him, Chad. That was an excellent drive right up until the very last moment. Senna had it all to lose and unfortunately lost it. The gap was nothing right across the line, and there he is. If there's one thing you can do, is it's get back to the pits first even. It was a magnificent drive from all drivers involved. Tim there tried to make it work, was just waiting for a bit of an accident or a contact between the drivers ahead, but it did not happen. Raven there kept with Senna. Props to her, managing to keep with him, and he made the tiniest of mistakes, and she absolutely capitalized on it. But I think my driver of the day is definitely going to have to be Senna Somerville. That was an excellent drive from him, Chad.
I do agree. Yeah, he managed to keep his wits about him all through that and put on an excellent bit of defense. And I did say nearly perfect. there is where the nearly comes in. You know, just had to hold it together for one more corner, got it slightly wrong on the exit, tried to get the power down a little too early, maybe in his excitement to know that it was the final corner, and that's where it went a little wrong for Senna Somerville.
It's not all doom and gloom, though. You know, you learn a lot from these races. Senna finishing almost dead last in the first race, putting him in this position here to capitalize on a very good first lap for him for the second race, and found, or rather finds himself on the second step of the podium here for the second race. It was an excellent race from Raven. Raven finishes P1, Senna in P2, Tim Stahl finishes P3, Roger Keller in P4, Oswin Wilson in P5, Kimani Eastman almost P5. It's 0.074 seconds between Kimani and Oswin Wilson ahead. Mikhail Charles finishes in P7. Stefan Tremblay made an excellent move. Don't think I didn't see it, Stefan. Made an excellent move on Nicholas Donald into the first hairpin, but we were watching these three here battle it out at that time. Finishes in P8. Nicholas Donald finishes in P9, and Jaden Harrison, unfortunately, along with Eric Ferreira, not finishing this race.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we will be taking some interviews at this stage of the game, starting with Senna Somerville. Senna, can you hear me? Senna? Senna, are you hearing me? Check. I'm not. Where is sound coming from?
Hello?
Yeah, no. Check, but I'm not.
Hello?
Sorry, Senna, are you hearing me now? No. Senna?
If you guys can hear me, I can't hear you. I'm.
No, back. Mic check. Can you hear?
No, it's happening. I don't know what's happening.
Hello? I think we should try it again if you can hear me.
Can you hear me, Senna?
It's probably so nice.
Sorry about that, Senna. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, no, that some technical difficulties here on our end, but
No worries.
a brilliant second race there from you, Senna, but got it wrong in the final corner. Talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, it just showed. I can't tell you why I didn't have the pace to be out there in the front from the first race, but it just shows in the second race, honestly. Just a little error in the last corner. I don't know what it was, but Raven's car was a little bit behind me going into that last corner, and all of a sudden it glitched right behind me. So I braked a little bit later just so she wouldn't have connected with me. And yeah, so unfortunately, that happened in the last corner. But yeah, it was a great race otherwise. I think it was entertaining. That's what happens when you put somebody who has good racecraft at the front of the race, even though they're not fast enough. But I was enjoying it. I had a smile on my face every lap. I was like, come on, these guys are a whole second faster than me and can't pass me. So trust me, I was having a great time. It really hurt me though in that last corner that Raven got by me. But like I said, it was just a little lag and made me brake a little bit later just so she wouldn't have hit into the back of me. And then I honestly think she could have used her push to pass there because I don't know what happened in that last corner. But still, great race.
Yeah, no, certainly you put on quite a defensive show there, but unfortunately that you only came out with P2. But congratulations nonetheless on the podium.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. So we'll talk again soon, Senna.
Alright, cool.
Okay, next up we will be talking to Jaden Harrison. Jaden, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Jaden, rough day in the office.
No. Yeah, it's good both races.
Yeah, what happened there in the first race? You were leading quite comfortably, and then something went wrong.
There was like glitch with the laps, and I was trying to look and figure it out, and I completely lost focus and missed the whole breaking point. I went flat off the track.
Ouch.
Yeah.
And then race number 2 there, it seems something happened when you were battling Senna for the lead.
Yeah, I just made a bad call, and I can't feel the brake pedal with this car, so actually in race 1 too, I had the same error where I broke the car wouldn't stop, and then I hit Rogers the same way. So, I left the server just to kind of stop the pileup.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, unfortunate day for you, but certainly some promise shown in terms of your pace, so we look forward to seeing what you bring in the future races.
Yes, hopefully.
Alright, Jaden. Okay, that was Jaden Harrison. Next up, we will be talking to Raven Plummer. Raven, are you with me?
Yes, I am.
Well, photo finish race there in the second race. Talk to us. How did that go?
Very stressful. Very stressful race. First race I enjoyed, right? It was very relaxing cruise. I put on the hards and I just cruised. I was not looking to take the win. Second race, by the time I caught up to Senna, I thought I could take P1. 2 laps after trying to do that, I realized this was not a good strategy. I was at 4 track cuts. I just wanted to finish in P2. Tim was right behind me, putting the most ungodly amount of pressure I've ever felt. And Senna was parking it on the apex and taking the exit curb. Took everything in me to manage my positioning to not lose P2. And I just ended up getting lucky on the very final turn because my entire intention was to just take P2 there at the end. But I got lucky and I took the win. And, well, I'm not sad about that. I'm very happy I took the win.
Yeah, no, certainly. It looked like well, from our perspective, a fun battle, but maybe for you, as you said, quite stressful. It looked like Senna was forcing you around the outside every time. Is it that you didn't think you had any way to set him up better for that move?
No, I mean, he did force me around the outside every single time, and I'm fine with that. But what I'm not fine with is him taking the exit curb when he parks it on the apex. So the few times I did manage to get side by side with him on the apex, even though I had that wheel overlap, he would still go for the exit curb and I'd be forced to pull out of the move. Otherwise, I would take him out of the race. And if that happens, Tim is passing me. So I'd rather lose the position every time to him taking the exit curb than lose the position to Tim behind me.
Fair enough. Well, good race all around, and you certainly provided the entertainment value for that second race. So congratulations.
Thank you. It was definitely too bloody a fist fight for me to fully enjoy, but it was definitely a great race and an amazing finish. Amazing photo finish.
Absolutely. Thanks, Raven, and we look forward to seeing what comes next.
Thank you.
Okay, that was Raven Plummer, and finally we will be talking to race 1 winner Tim Stahl. Tim, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Well, congratulations on the race 1 win and then third place in the second race. It looked like you were in the fight of your life in that second race.
Yeah, the second race was definitely interesting, especially with Senna often just parking it on the apex and Raven having to brake earlier. It's difficult to sort of guess when people are going to brake, and we almost had an incident in T1 actually, because it was just, there was nowhere to go, and Senna just parked it on the apex. Raven braked earlier. I took sort of my usual braking point, maybe a little bit earlier just to be cautious, and I still had to take evasive action. And yeah, that was sketchy. It was very stressful, but at some point also kind of fun.
Absolutely. And in race number 1, you absorbed some pressure there from Raven towards the middle of the race. How was that battle?
Yeah, Raven was on pace, very, very strong on pace, especially mid-race. I was watching the gap like crazy because I was actually scared that she was going to get close enough for setting up a move. Luckily, it didn't happen. But yeah, especially in the middle of the race, there were a few laps where she was just on pace, just 1 or 2 tenths faster. And I was just overall hoping that she wouldn't get close. But at the end of the race, it seemed that the tires were falling off. Maybe she was just relaxing, trying not to crash, or maybe I was handling the tires a bit better. I don't know. But yeah, toward the end of the race, I started building a gap and started getting more comfortable. And then also, with getting more comfortable, the consistency and lap times increased again.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, no, good racing all around, Tim, and we look forward to seeing you back with us in future races.
Yep, thank you very much.
All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, and that about wraps up another Caribbean Touring Car Challenge Friday double race for the evening. We were certainly provided great racing action here this evening, and if you want to witness more action like this, tune in this and every Friday for our continued races, and certainly tune in for Chase Up Pace tomorrow. Radicals, Donington Park, looks to be a fun time. Kale, anything to add?
Yeah, thank you. It's been my pleasure to commentate this race. Thank you for joining us on Sportsmax app and on YouTube. You can feel free to rewatch any of our past races and follow us, or rather subscribe on YouTube to keep abreast of what's happening here at the JSRA. Follow us on our social media on Instagram at JSRA Official. My name is Kale Vaden Ropa, and with me is Chad Dillon.
Absolutely. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, and we hope to see you next time. We are coming up to
So
there is a round.
outside. Oh yeah.
Ooh, he tried the switcheroo.
You came and failed the test, you met the best, expected chess, but got monopoly. I came and bought you out, I knocked you out, I crouched you out with no apologies. I am the hope, the heart, the fate, the spark, the one who will fulfill the prophecy. I just been counting, never lounging, climbing up mountains, bouncing back. Step in the ring, about to step back. They'll learn hot when I get on the track. I like it louder than most. Watching all these sheep just buy down to the goat. If I can't decide, I'ma probably get both. We didn't celebrate, but right now I'm a toast. Resurrected
Here is Eastman going side by side with Jaden Harrison. Jaden Harrison took him on the inside, but Eastman says no and closes the door. But here he is now about to lose 2 positions heading into the